All right, finals of the Disney Lorcana Challenge in Seattle. Luke Goodwin versus Shawn. Shawn on Amber Steel. Luke once again on that Emerald Steel.
We're going to watch these players go through their altering hands. I believe Luke will get to choose who goes first, being the higher seeded player, so be very surprised to see anything other than him going first. We immediately see a one-drop Diablo in that hand. Don't see a Shift Diablo after it, but do see an Ursula Deceiver, a Prince John as well, with some discard cards available. We'll see what Luke decides to put back.
Yeah, I'm interested to see the strategy, the Amber Steel player here, like how much they prioritize having that early shift line to be able to sing A Whole New World, how important that is against something like Emerald Steel, and how important it is to have answers against that early curve. So Emerald Steel, particularly in the mirror, talked about some of those opening Diablo lines, you know, something like an Ursula Deceiver coming down on turn 2, turn 3, you got Ursula Singer, and you kind of set up this lock. I wonder how effective that is against a more song-heavy deck in the form of Steel songs like Shawn is on.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to walk the tightrope here as Luke, being the Emerald Steel player, leaning on some of those songs because Shawn is playing a Queen Shift line, so we could see something as early as a turn 2 Whole New World being played. And also, if you lean too far on some of those discard abilities from Emerald Steel, and Shawn does manage to play something like a Whole New World and refill the hand, it just sort of undoes everything that you've worked so hard to do. At the same time, though, you know, we can't just rely on cards like Diablo, being only a 2 strength, 2 willpower character, very vulnerable to a lot of the steel removal available in these Amber Steel decks as well.
Yeah, I'm just taking a look at Shawn's list and does have the Queen Shift package. Also has 2 Blues, no Piglets in the deck, which I think is actually going to probably be beneficial in this matchup. Has 2 Gastons as well, and then 4 Along Came Zeus, a card that, you know, definitely makes its way into Steel Song, but a card I've seen people kind of flux on how many copies they have in their list. Could be good against some of the top-end threats that might be deployed here by Luke.
Yeah, I mean, when we think about Emerald Steel, one of the things that it can do really well is deploy multiple threats at a time, forcing the opponent to be stuck between a rock and a hard place, having to choose which one they value more. We have cards like Beast Tragic Hero, Diablo, Ursula Deceiver of All is a card that comes to mind for a matchup like this, being able to sing songs twice, you know, gaining a ton of value out of those. Along Came Zeus is a card that can answer all of those if needed, but we are going to start this match with Luke inking a card, playing a 1-cost Diablo, getting a good look at Shawn's hand. Shawn making sure to not have any songs in there in case we do see an Ursula Deceiver coming down on turn 2, but looking pretty decent with 2 aerials in hand, you know, being able to search through your deck later on in the game for songs, probably setting Shawn wanting to set up something like those Ursula Vanessas so that we can sing those songs when we find them.
So notably no 1-drop. No shift line as well available, but does have, you know, ways to accrue card advantage. After that, has the Smee likely on turn 2, and then something into those Ariels starting on turn 3. We're going to go ahead and ink our Queen here and pass back to Luke. We'll see what Luke has in store for us after deploying that turn 1 Diablo. That Ursula Deceiver not looking as good after seeing the hand with the Diablo.
I think we may have 2 or 3 Ursula Deceivers in hand as well. No Diablo shift line, no Hidden Cove either. No turn 2 Hidden Cove, shift into Diablo, move it there. Could be a pretty decent opening against a steel deck, but not one available to us here. I do see a Pete in hand though. Might be useful coming into a turn 3.
Yeah, this looks like a pretty weak opening hand from Luke. Definitely not what you want to see, and I think that's why we saw the sort of head shake from him when looking at Shawn's hand here and seeing that there was no songs with all those Ursulas ready to go.
Gonna move on over to Shawn. He's gonna draw a 1-drop Queen for turn. We have a couple 2-drop characters that we can play here. Ursula Vanessa being a Singer 4, or that Mr. Smee having 2 lore and a 3/3 body. Pretty decent stats just for a 2-cost card. Gonna ink this Queen, play out this Ursula. I think setting up for one of the 3 aerial spectacular singers I believe we have in our hand. Hopefully finding a card off of her and setting ourselves up to sing it with Ursula.
So Strength of a Raging Fire is the draw for Luke. Now 2 Strength of a Raging Fires accompanied by all of those Ursula Deceivers. So we're going to take another look at the hand here, but no song for the Ursula. So as Shawn, you got to be feeling pretty good about this. Can kind of smell that Luke doesn't really have a particularly powerful hand. You're not getting that explosive start that you usually worry about when facing down an Emerald Steel player.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. Not really seeing any of the scarier cards that we could be looking for, like a Shift Diablo or potentially a Morph coming down, threatening to shift something early. Also, missing on those Ursula Deceivers feels pretty good as well. Not getting any value out of those. We do draw a Strength of a Raging Fire for turn here for Shawn. See if we can play something, and if he decides to use that to potentially banish this Diablo.
I have to imagine we're going to be playing out that Ariel on this turn. Could imagine that some of the better draws would be something like Strength of Raging Fire, allowing you to remove that Diablo, get rid of the shift threat, as well as draw an additional card. Don't really feel like I would want to expend my Strength of Raging Fire on that card quite yet. Maybe we could pick up a whole new world for some kind of later shift line or later game plan, but ultimately I feel like one of our better draws off this Ariel is going to be that Let the Storm Rage On.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the ideal card here. We do find 2 Along Came Zeus in that 4 cards at the top of the deck. We're going to take one of them, put the other 3 at the bottom of our deck. A little bit unfortunate knowing that you have one of those Along Came Zeus that you're probably not going to see again this game, but at least it's another answer we have in hand. Shawn deciding not to sing it this turn, though, and passing it over to Luke.
Yeah, and I think that's correct. I really like Along Came Zeus in this matchup in particular. Kind of negates a lot of the scarier top-end threats that Luke could deploy onto this board to try to come back to, and especially when he stumbles in the early game, something like a Beast Tragic Hero going unanswered could bring Luke back. But having that clean response in the form of Along Came Zeus, Shawn's got to be feeling pretty comfortable here.
We see Luke respecting the Along Came Zeus in hand, playing a Pete, ensuring that Shawn isn't going to be able to play any actions on this turn if he finds any. Again, I just don't think that the board state for Luke is looking too great. One of the good things about Pete, though, is he is a 3-cost character. He also has 3 strength and 3 willpower, so can sing 3-cost songs. If we do find this aerial exerted on this turn, singing a song, or I guess we can't sing a song, but if we find a 3 willpower character exerted, Pete can trade into it pretty efficiently down the line.
Yeah, I don't even feel like Luke would really want to play a Pete in this situation if that wasn't the only play available to him in the hand. I think it just speaks to how clunky this opening hand has been for Luke here.
We are going to see Shawn playing a Lawrence here. Very greatly statted body, being a 4/4 with 2 lore until damage is put on it. Then he loses that 4 strength and becomes a 0/4, but makes for very efficient trades. Also sets up very nicely for Rapunzel's. We can challenge into something that can deal 3 strength back, then heal it back. We do have Rapunzel in hand. If Luke decides to exert any of his cards this turn, sets us up for playing that and drawing some extra cards.
Yeah, extrapolating from some of Shawn's early plays makes me think he's taking a more controlling role in this matchup. Did opt to ink the Smee, also played the Ursula Singer on 2. So feels like he's trying to kind of try to stop Luke from having one of those explosive starts where he sort of locks him out of the game and develops those those very pesky threats early on, and tries to extend it to that mid to late game where he can pull ahead in card advantage from things like Ariel or even big plays like a Whole New World. Also drawing a lot of that removal, which makes these like Shift Diablo lines a lot less scary as we progress to the mid to late game.
I think it's definitely the direction you want to take against an Emerald Steel match here. Just because if you let them get away with some of those shift lines too quickly, if you let them gain control of the board, it can be very easy for you to just sort of lose everything in your hand, lose everything on the board as well, and then it doesn't take very long for them to build up a wide board, quest out and in the game pretty early. We've definitely seen that multiple times this weekend. We are going to see Luke play an Ursula Deceiver.
This is the 3rd time's a charm. It's not the 3rd Ursula, but it's the 3rd look at Shawn's hand, and he finally does find a target here.
Luke's going to choose the Strength of a Raging Fire to discard instead of the Along Came Zeus. So that's 1 song out of Shawn's hand. One song that Shawn can't use to gain a little bit of control here in this match.
All right. So Luke deciding what to do here. Plays another Ursula. Obviously knows that he's going to be able to find this Along Came Zeus in the hand of Shawn. Getting decent value out of those Ursulas after kind of seeing a lot of blanks in the hand to start off with. While not the opening line that Luke wants, at least getting something for his troubles with those Ursulas.
Also building up a relatively wide board with decently statted characters in that most of them have 3 willpower, so being able to answer this Lawrence here, singing Strength of a Raging Fire with Pete, means that even if we do draw into a song or two next turn, we need to draw into something like Long Came Zeus's or Strength of a Raging Fires and playing other cards along with it to even banish some of these characters. I don't think Shawn is playing cards like Grab Your Swords either. So if Luke's able to build a wide board and get some value out of this, it could be looking good for him.
Yeah, so the problem with the board state right now on the side of Luke is he doesn't really have access to any card draw. And then if we look at Shawn's side, has access to 2 Ariels as well as a Rapunzel. So a lot of ways for Shawn, if he can kind of keep the board stable in a sense, to get back in this game and pull ahead in terms of drawing way more cards than Luke.
We're going to see Shawn taking some time, thinking about his next plays. C3 ink being exerted here. Might see an Aerial come down. Going to look at the top 4 cards of our deck. Try to find a song card that we can put into our hand. We do find a Whole New World.
It looks like a Whole New World is the only target there. Seeing Blue, Daisy Duck, and Pete as well, which will go to the bottom here.
If we wanted to, we could use this Aerial already in play to sing a Whole New World, but as you mentioned, Brendan, Luke doesn't have great card draw options, and so you have to question if giving him a hand of 7 new cards is worth it for you, especially with another Aerial in hand and Rapunzel for yourself.
Yeah, I can maybe utilize that Whole New World later after effectively drawing Luke a card with something like Daisy Duck, and then equalize that card advantage with something like a Whole New World, making Luke discard those cards on Shawn's turn, kind of minimizing the parity in that card. Double Let the Storm Rage On here for Luke.
A little bit unfortunate in that we only have Pete that can sing this. We could also just pay for one with 3 ink, but none of the characters on Shawn's side of the board have 2 willpower, so we're going to put 2 damage on an Aerial after singing with Pete, drawing a card from the Let the Storm Rage On. We're going to immediately exert 3 ink, play the other one on the Aerial, banishing it to draw another card for turn. We see 2 Prince Shawns being drawn there. Can't ink any of those or play them for this turn. We're going to go ahead and quest for 3 with our 3 Ursula Deceivers, pushing Luke up to 6 lore. At this point, I think might be a decent time to go ahead and wheel now that we could ink a card this turn, potentially play a card, but one thing that I like about these Amber Steel decks is with 2 singers on board, one of them you'd have to sing a Whole New World with, particularly the Aerial. You could use the Ursula Vanessa to sing any cards that you drew into. Could also play this Aerial Spectacular, 3rd Aerial Spectacular Singer out of hand first. Try to find removal cards there before committing to a Whole New World.
Yep, Shawn, despite being behind on board, is still in a pretty decent spot here.
I think Shawn for a second was considering questing with Daisy here, seeing what Luke draws off of the top of the deck before committing to anything. We are going to challenge the Pete here with Ursula Vanessa, taking 3 damage so that we can play the Rapunzel, healing 3 damage off of Ursula Vanessa and drawing 3 cards.
Yeah. The Whole New World definitely doesn't really feel like it's in the books right now. I was going to note that Shawn doesn't have many characters in the deck that can engage well with Luke's board. Outside of something like the Shift Queen, just in this Lawrence, of course, but doesn't have that like top-end Cinderella like we see in some other Steel Song lists.
Are going to see Shawn singing Let the Storm Rage On to banish that Pete. After finding that from the Rapunzel, we're going to play a Cinderella Ballroom Sensation after inking a Cinderella and then passing the turn to Luke. Catching up a little bit on board here, building a wider board for Shawn. Previously, Luke had the larger one, but Luke doesn't really have a particularly great hand here with a 1-cost Diablo and 2 Prince Shawns, no discards in hand.
Yeah, all of Luke's characters on board and in hand only have 1 strength. So you have to wonder, Shawn, is there a point where you can just start turning things sideways and Luke just can't do anything about it?
It's one of the places that I find Emerald Steel struggles a little bit is those areas and stats. Many of the characters in this deck only have 1 or 2 strength, so you're met with a wide board where there's a lot of willpower, or you're met with locations with a lot of willpower. If you're forced to challenge into those, it can be a real struggle. Luke is going to play this Diablo to get a peek at Shawn's hand, see what Shawn's working with. Likely taking note of the aerial in hand that could potentially find songs on the next turn, but not a lot that he can do about it. Decides to play the Prince John and pass.
Make sure to see how Shawn turns the corner here. Because, you know, while Luke is at 10 lore, has 6 characters on board, it does feel like there's going to be an inflection point when Shawn sort of, you know, rounds that corner and just starts questing himself.
Especially given his ability to find song cards in his deck with the likes of Ariel Spectacular Singer. Do find to let the Storm Rage on off of that. We can use to banish a Diablo or put 2 damage on an Ursula and challenge if we wanted to thin Luke's board out here, but looks like we're gonna sing this with the Cinderella we played last turn.
All right. Goes for the Ursula here.
Gonna draw another 5-cost Queen off of the top from the Let the Storm Rage On.
Yeah, that Queen, you know, getting a Queen to his board would help a lot due to the support.
Yeah, Queen would definitely help in some of these trades, just ensuring that we're not taking much damage.
And I did misspeak. Queen technically doesn't have support. It just has a ability that's very similar to support.
Considering inking a Queen here now that we have 2 in hand, putting us 3 ink available so that we can play out this Gaston card that I've seen increasing in popularity for these Amber Steel lists. Card that was released back in set 2, saw a little bit of testing and play back then, and then sort of exited the meta, but I find it's a pretty decent singer in these Amber Steel lists.
So I'm wondering now if Shawn just starts trading with all the characters that have 1 strength and one, you know, quest for 1 lore, and starts questing with all the characters that quest for 2. Just to kind of, you know, be somewhere in the middle of keeping Luke's board from getting out of control and keeping Luke from, you know, effectively winning the game by just turning all these things sideways while also progressing his own win condition.
Yeah, because Shawn's definitely set up.
Oh, no, he traded with he's bringing the Daisy Duck into this as well.
Knowing that Luke hasn't found much of a card draw engine here, we do have the Prince John, so if we draw a discard card that Luke can use, Shawn does have cards at hand. We could maybe start getting that ball rolling, but it does make sense from Shawn's angle, you know, just reducing this board state so that we can get to a point where we can quest out for all of the lore on the board currently.
Does draw a Beast Tragic Hero, by the way. Doesn't have enough ink to play it. So Shawn took a little bit of a hybrid route of what I talked about, where he technically did that, where he decided to trade with the 1 questing characters and quest with the 2 quest character, but he opted to not do it with the Daisy Duck because he knows that Luke's struggling on cards right now. And that Daisy Duck trigger actually would have drawn Luke the Beast Tragic Hero, and maybe the next card off the top of the deck would have been Inkable.
Inkable, yeah. Could have played the Beast. Looks like we're going to do a little bit of trading here with the Gaston, getting rid of the final Ursula Deceiver. We do have an Along Came Zeus in hand, though, from Shawn, so if we do see this Beast being played next turn, Shawn will have the answer for it.
Which feels like it really cements Shawn's lead in this game right now.
Yeah, I mean, if Luke can't establish some card draw in some form here, definitely feels like this game doesn't have too much longer. I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 9 lore on board for Shawn right now. Only needs 2 or 3 turns of being able to quest with those to finish this game 1. Thinning down Luke's board here.
Yeah, it feels like if we try to think about Luke's outs, it's hard to think of something outside of Shawn making the mistake of casting a whole new world.
Yeah, because even if we find something like Tinkerbell Giant Fury, we don't have the ink to play it for another 2 turns. Of course, there's those Along Came Zeuses that can just banish it as well if it's played. We know that if Luke plays the Beast this turn, it's not going to survive. There's just not a lot that Luke can do from this situation, I don't think.
All right, looks like we're going to go ahead and deploy that Queen here.
Just another 2 quester. Also, because of that ability, can make for very favorable trades or sing expensive songs like Whole New World if we wanted to. So we have plenty of options for that with 2 aerials on board. We are going to see a Pete drawn from the Daisy trigger, which will go to Luke's hand.
All right, so over to Luke here. Looks like he's counting up the lore, kind of knows that the writing is on the wall. And we're going to be soon going into a game 2 here.
Yeah, we have 11 lore on Shawn's side of the board, so can't win on the next turn, but Luke's not playing any wide board removal like grab your swords, so would need a lot of characters to challenge or a lot of removal songs to sing, and being low with cards in hand and low in ink, very likely not going to happen.
And Shawn representing a 2-turn clock, questing for 11 on the next turn.
Going to see the ink or the peat being inked, play out the Beast Tragic Hero.
Yep, and we already know how this one's going to go with that. Along came Zeus in hand for Shawn.
Yeah, it's all you can really do as Luke, though. Just pray or hope that he doesn't have anything to do anything with your Beast. Maybe draw an extra couple cards and crawl your way back into this game. But
important to note, this is the game with Luke on the play, so this bodes very well for Shawn in the series. It's a big game to win. There's that along came Zeus, and we're going to see a concession of Luke, which I think is absolutely appropriate. It's a 2-turn clock. There's nowhere out of it.
Yeah, Luke knows that with the Beast gone, there's no way he's going to be able to draw the cards needed. There's 11 lore on board. I lost count of how many characters were on Shawn's side of the board at that point. But, we can kind of see what happens in an Emerald Steel game where you can't really establish those powerful cards that it's known for, like the Diablos, and Shawn was just able to run away with that one.
Yeah, very subpar and clunky draw out of Luke, which, I know Luke was on the play. That's one of the matches that you definitely want to win in this series. But you have to assume, as Luke, as you go into game 2 and potentially game 3, that your opening hands are probably going to be better than the game 1 there.
Yeah, you hope so at least. So I'm interested to see if we can find those. We'll see if Shawn can maybe take this away on a game 2. So let's get into it.
All right, game 2 here. Luke's potential championship title on the line. Shawn could take it all in this game 2.
One quick thing to note about Luke as well is I know that Luke has been to quite a few Disney Lorcana challenges. He's been searching for that invite for a long time. Made it to 18th place in Atlanta. Made it to, I think, 32nd place in Toronto, or maybe it was Vegas. Getting so close to that invite. Found the invite here. I'm sure he's happy to have made it this far, grab his golden Mickey, but would just be the cherry on top to take it home.
Yeah, I think that's the goal of a lot of the players attending this final Lorcana challenge here in Seattle, is to try to qualify, with that top 16 to the Continentals. Everybody wants to keep playing. They all want to get their ticket to the next thing on the road for Lorcana competitive.
All right, we're going to see good sportsmanship, the fist bump as we go into starting turns. Of course, Luke is going to be on the play here, having lost the last round. And I feel like if I'm Luke, I just want to find some of those strong openings that we were missing last game. Something like a shifting Diablo into Cove, or finding cards maybe like Ursula Deceiver that we can use to keep Shawn's board under control, take Shawn out of that controlling, or being able to be in that controlling position, getting value out of those songs with the singers available to him.
Yeah, Diablo's definitely a lot weaker versus opposing Steel decks, especially Steel Songs, which has access to a lot of removal. So I think the explosive power can come from that turn 1 Diablo, turn 2 shift Diablo, obviously discard the action, play Ursula Deceiver, take the removal piece out of my opponent's hand, and then accrue that advantage over the next 2 to 3 turns. And from there, try to develop another sort of lock via something like a Prince John or maybe an Ursula Singer. So we do have the turn 1 Diablo here, so we're going to take a look at Shawn's hand.
Do see an action through multiple actions here.
Yeah, 4.
Long came Zeus, set the Storm Rage on, Strength, and a Whole New World. Also have the Aerial in hand as well to potentially sing that Whole New World later. But more songs than Luke's going to be able to discard through an Ursula Deceiver over the next couple turns.
Yeah, probably, if he was going to do that line that I was talking about, would take the Let the Storm Rage on if he had the Shift Diablo line. Doesn't look like he does. Look like he has 2 Ursula Singers in hand.
Also have the Cinderella Ballroom Sensation that Shawn can play on the next turn, setting up for singing one of those songs if Luke doesn't have any removal that you could play after potentially shifting a Diablo. Luke just taking some time to study Shawn's hand so that we can map out the next couple turns. There's no note-taking in Lorcana, so has to keep all of it to memory. We're going to pass it over to Shawn. See if he decides to go with a Cinderella on turn 1 or that Daisy Duck.
Ariel is the draw for Shawn here.
Going to ink a strength here, playing the Cinderella.
So I think the Cinderella is the must play because even though you don't know that Luke doesn't have it, it insulates against that Shift Diablo. Ideally, it's not as good if he is able to play the Ursula Deceiver and snag the Lethal Storm Rage on, but you could turn to potentially play something like a Daisy Duck and then sing the Strength of a Raging Fire with the Cinderella. Neither of that would get around the Cove, though, which is going to be our turn 2 play out of Luke, and no Shift Diablo off the back of it.
I do love the Hidden Cove here, especially in these Steel Mirror matches, or Steel matches, where if you move a character to the Hidden Cove, they get +1 strength and +1 willpower. It can really insulate against some of those songs like Let the Storm Rage On. Let the Storm Rage On only dealing 2 damage. You know, it's not going to banish the Diablo at this point anymore. Lorcana can be a game of math, a game of numbers, and just shifting stats around a little bit can mess up those numbers entirely.
Yeah, our players have spoken to the power of the Cove in the Emerald Steel Mirror match in particular, but I'm assuming it applies to a lot of the Steel matchups. Because you're right, it does blank a lot of that removal. Like there's a few breakpoints in Lorcana, with 3 being the breakpoint for a lot of removal songs and 4 being the breakpoint for a lot of strength characters. A lot of characters will have 3 strength instead of 4, and a lot of removal, at least cheap removal at that, is going to do 2 damage and not 3.
Looking at Luke's hand here, he doesn't have anything great to play for turn 3. We do have a Let the Storm Rage on we could pay for. We also have an Ana, but I feel like we want to save this Ana to utilize her to her full effect, being able to pay an extra 2 ink for a couple different options. Could play the Let the Storm Rage on onto the Cinderella, making sure that Shawn can't sing songs for free.
Yeah, I was thinking we were going to see one of those Ursula singers come out, so we get rid of the Cinderella. Oh, actually, we're going to go ahead and just, play that out. That makes sense, because if you do play an Ursula singer here, we can see the turn 3, something like an Ariel, and then Shawn could sing that Strength of a Raging Fire and get rid of that Ursula.
Pass back to Shawn here, drawing a Ursula, I think. We're going to put it into the Inkwell. Looking like we might be playing an Ariel here. Searching for some songs from the top of the deck. None we'll be able to sing with, but we're just looking for removal options here so that whatever Luke plays, we can answer. If we ever find a Shift Diablo or getting to the point where Luke can start playing some characters that might cause us trouble, like a singer Ursula.
Yeah, still so far looking like a subpar draw here for Luke. You know, having to exert 3 ink to play that Let the Storm Rage on. Never ideal, and there's our Ursula singer.
Going to move the Ursula to the Hidden Cove, insulate against some of that removal. Yep. Pushing her 3 willpower to 4.
But Long Came Zeus will be able to answer that Ursula, which I have to assume we're going to see this turn.
I feel like you have to. I feel like most games where Ursula is able to double sing a song, you know, you greatly decrease your chances of winning if you let that happen to you. So we are going to see the Along Came Zeus being played, banishing the Ursula Deceiver Ball here.
Yep, just threatens way too much value.
We have a blue and another Ariel available to play here for Shawn. I had to imagine we're going to play the Ariel. Look for some more songs. Look at the top 4. If we can find anything. Do find a Whole New World.
I think that's not what we want to see here, actually. It seems like a Whole New World is just not a preferred card to play, especially on the draw as the Amber Steel player in this matchup.
No, it's definitely an odd card in an Emerald Steel matchup. You know, we don't see any of the more powerful draw engines like Prince Shawn or the Shift Diablo in play right now for Luke. But you know, when you think of a Whole New World, you're discarding cards, you're drawing cards. 2 things that Emerald Steel, you know, wants you to do in general, can sort of give your opponent extra card advantage when you use it. You're going to see a Sudden Chill being inked here.
All right, up to 5 inks, so Ana's modal ability is going to be available for Luke here.
Might be considering challenging this Ariel, using one of Ana's abilities to banish a damaged character for paying 2 extra ink.
Yep, looks like that's going to be exactly what's going to happen here.
Just Luke trying to keep Shawn off of as many singers as possible here, understanding the value that comes from being able to play those cards for free, essentially.
Big draw in the form of the Lawrence. I was going to mention that You know, Shawn also doesn't have a great way to deal with these locations outside of something like a Lawrence or a Queen.
I think Shawn's considering singing. Probably let the Storm Rage on here with this aerial. Maybe banishing the Diablo on the Cove to draw a card, get some information before we commit to spending any ink on anything.
All right, looks like we're going to go ahead and get rid of that Diablo. Daisy Duck has not done much questing for Shawn outside of that, you know, once the game was already locked up in game one, he did quest with it. So has been using it as more of a character to trade with, which is very interesting. I think it's not saying it's not the correct play, but it does denote his strategy and what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at Luke's deck list, there's quite a few songs and actions, actually, and locations that could potentially be hit, but definitely don't want to fuel Luke's hand, especially if you get the inclination that he doesn't have any of those, you know, the hand that he would enjoy to have.
Yeah, it can kind of, you know, you get the idea that if one of these draw engines is not... Oh, we do actually cast a whole new world here, so Shawn's hand likely also clunky is going to go ahead and draw the 7 new cards here.
All right, we're going to pass it back over to Luke here. Shawn, after seeing a whole new world, both players have 7 new cards in hand.
It's going to be a Pete into Morph here for Luke. Going to quest with the Ana as well on the Cove. It's interesting. We're going to be interested to see how much value Luke can get out of those 7 new cards that he drew off of that whole new world.
I really like the Pete play from Luke here, too. You know, one of the stronger things that Amber Steel can do is after refilling their hand with 7 new cards, utilize those singers that they like to play out to the board before playing a whole new world. We have Cinderella and Ariel here, but Luke's saying with this Pete that, no, I'm not going to allow you to sing those songs or play any actions on me this turn. Give me an opportunity to play out some more characters, potentially build up a better board, and bring myself to a state where I can answer those.
Yeah, Pete's an absolute all-star against these Amber Steel song decks.
When we're looking at Shawn's hand, he's flipping through. He has a whole new world, Strength of Raging Fire, and an Ariel, and outside of that, just a Gaston and I think a Queen. So, you know, a lot of characters, a lot of cards that could utilize songs as well. You know, essentially turning those off. I think Luke trying to decide here what we want to do with the rest of our turn. We're singing Strength of Raging Fire with Ana, banishing the Cinderella, and passing it over to Shawn.
Interesting. So, talk to me about the targeting the Cinderella here. That Strength of Raging Fire.
It is interesting because knowing that Shawn can't play any actions on the next turn, it makes me wonder if Luke was able to look at Shawn's deck list very closely about a Shift Cinderella coming into play. I don't believe Shawn is playing the Shift Cinderella line, but we could have seen it shifted on this turn, going to 5 ink, you know, wanted to avoid sort of such a large character. I think Luke is only playing one Ana as well. That's one of the few outs to a big shift character like that, outside of maybe we don't talk about Bruno, so potentially playing around that.
Yeah, no Shift Cinderella in the list, and that play did telegraph that sort of line. Shift Cinderella would have been really good, to be fair.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah, if there was a threat of it, that play makes sense, but yeah, I would have thought that the target probably would have been that Ariel.
That's exactly what I was wondering. You know, why the Cinderella instead of the Ariel there? Are going to pass it back to Luke. Shawn just developing a Queen, which isn't the worst thing, you know, not being able to play any actions. You are setting up a character that can help you make some trades on the next turn. assuming it survives the turn, and Luke doesn't have the answers for it.
Prince John hits the field here for Luke. Potentially able to get a lot of value out of those discard cards. We see a Sudden Chill in hand. I think that Pete was potentially exerting to sing that Sudden Chill as well.
Also, ward characters in general just going to be very strong into an Amber Steel match. Shawn only playing, I think, a couple Tinkerbells. They're the only thing that can deal some wide removal damage. I know they're not playing any.
I actually don't think that Shawn's playing any Tinkerbells. The list I'm looking at is accurate.
Okay, so in that case, these ward characters are essentially untouchable if they stayed readied.
Yeah, they do look to be untouchable.
So we are going to see Luke sing Sudden Chill, forcing Shawn to discard a card, drawing a card when it's discarded because of Prince Shawn's ability. Shawn's going to discard that Gaston. This is where I think we can see Luke really taking over this game, you know, establishing a ward character that can't be interacted with, that helps you draw cards. Definitely a good spot to be in. We're going to sing Let the Storm Rage On with Pete here. Maybe wanting to hit this Daisy Duck.
Luke definitely starting to take over this game, but having to do it in somewhat of a surgical fashion, which we're not really used to out of Emerald Steel. Usually Emerald Steel tries to open up very explosive and then kind of create a lot of advantage in the early game that it can snowball into the mid to late game. But Luke, a pretty unimpressive start, and actually was looking a bit out of luck until that whole new world was cast.
See Luke inking an Ursula Deceiver of all here, using Let the Storm Rage On and Baboom to banish this queen, ensuring that Shawn can't use queen's ability on the next turn to gain some good trades.
Yeah, to get rid of that Cove too, right?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, there's really no way that Shawn can deal with the Cove, and that queen represents one of the only ways. That's why we see Luke go ahead and 2-for-1 himself with that removal. Kind of not a 2-for-1 because Let the Storm Rage On does draw an additional card, but that's just because that card is busted.
Very good card. Always a 4 of in most Seal Song decks for sure. Both Luke and Shawn, I believe, are playing 4 each.
Luke, 1 card in hand, winning on board. Shawn, songs. And of course, a whole new world, which is not looking great right now.
No, he certainly, I mean, we see how Luke's been able to come back after being given 7 new cards. We do have a couple songs, and we have an aerial we can play as well to maybe look for more removal. Could use Baloo to sing, you know, a 3-cost removal song if we find it. We are going to start with this aerial. I think that's 2 Petes.
Yeah,
oh my goodness. I hate seeing 2 of those Petes going to the bottom of the deck. See what I feel like could be a pretty strong card into this match for both players.
Yeah, if you have a losing board state like this, you might be forced into a position where you have to cast a whole new world, which is a very scary place to be, especially when you don't have access to any sort of board removal, AoE board removal in the form of grab your swords, right?
Yeah, and we're staring at a pretty scary board here with Luke having 2 morphs, you know, could be threatening a Tragic Beast, Tinkerbell, or Diablo on either of them, or both. We have plenty of ink for both of them if we have them. I think we might have a Beast in hand. Yeah, there is a Tragic Beast in Luke's hand. I think Shawn trying to decide what we want to do here, if we want to sing Whole New World or if we want to start singing some of these removal songs.
Yeah, really tough spot for Shawn here. Definitely trying to pick the lesser of 2 evils. I think we're going to start it off with, 4 damage out of Strength of Raging Fire.
Banish the Ana here with that on the Hidden Cove. Exactly enough damage needed as she had +1 strength and willpower.
Yeah. I actually saw in another Emerald Steel matchup, the Muses get played and then watch the Emerald Steel player sort of recur that Ana back and forth. Play it over and over and again for the 5-cost ink.
I think Muses would be an incredible card for Luke to find here, just in general against Amber Steel. So many of those characters have 2 strength or less, and sort of denying them from establishing singing characters with your Muses, but also being able to pull back your useful characters like Ana, even Ursula Deceiver. Of course, we know 3 of those are in the discard for Luke, I think.
Yeah, I think that if Shawn had been able to stick that queen, we'd be looking at a very different game here. That Cove is just so hard to go up against when you have these characters that only have 2 strength. I mean, Smee, definitely a bit of an outlier, has 3 strength. That's nice. But how do we deal with this board right now? And then, of course, that Prince John is just threatening, get so much value over the course of this game.
You know, even if we do sing with this Along Came Zeus here, you know, it makes one of our aerials vulnerable, and you just have to imagine that Luke is not going to let that sit there, likely be banished. We do see a Tinkerbell drawn off the top and shifted.
Shift Tinkerbell is so strong, and you gotta start thinking. I think this is Luke's game to win. Is that Tinkerbell's going to trade with that blue? There's going to be a trigger going to target the Ariel, and now it's 3 characters on the side of Luke to 1 on Shawn, 1 damage counter on all of Shawn's characters. That Tinkerbell is just going to be a force to be reckoned with. We do have the answer in hand unless a Pete is deployed.
But we're going to move that Tinkerbell to the hidden cove.
It is not the answer. Talk about these breakpoints. 5 being another breakpoint, and 6. I remember there was there's been some characters in the past, vanilla characters have been played because 6 is just such a breakpoint sometimes. And, 6 willpower is just so much harder to deal with than 5. And we see, draws another. Along came Zeus.
If we really wanted to this turn, we could sing an Along Came Zeus, put 5 damage on the hidden cove, finish it off with Mr. Smee, and then pay for the other one and banish the Tinkerbell, but not extremely efficient.
Is there any other play that is available for Shawn, though? Shawn is definitely in a losing position, so he needs to find the line that gives him the out to win, even if it's unlikely, so maybe he needs to take some risky plays here. Or we're going to be looking to split this game 1-1 and go to a 3rd match.
Yeah, I mean, for the championship, so Luke has to fight everything he can to take this win. Same thing for Shawn. Shawn is just thinking of his options here. Do we want to take the risk of singing a whole new world? Maybe redeploying a board, but you're also giving Luke 7 cards. Do so.
Cove has just been the absolute all-star of this game. Completely warping the entire gameplay.
Looks like we're starting our 4 ink to play, and Along Came Zeus here on the Tinkerbell.
Well, that's just going to give it 5 damage counters. So now we need to... The way this works is if we do get rid of the Cove, Tinkerbell will go away. So we'll check those damage counters. Trading the Smee. Interesting. So instead of getting rid of the Cove, goes for the 2-for-1 with the Smee plus Zeus. We're going to sing Along Came Zeus and get rid of that Pete. And there's a Beast, Tragic Hero, just a salt in the wound here. Pretty much nothing Shawn can do. Shawn's going to have to exert all of his ink, basically play a whole new world, and then, this game is going to be over.
Yeah, when you have to pay for a whole new world, it feels especially bad. Can't get any value out of those 7 cards that you just drew. Only having 1 ink left over after we ink that Strength of a Raging Fire.
3 Diablos in hand, 2 Morphs, 1 Tinkerbell, and 1 small Diablo for Luke.
No removal in Shawn's hand either. Deal with any of this.
About time for Luke to turn the corner, start getting in the red zone with this questing.
Yeah, I think this is where we see Emerald Steel put its foot on the gas.
I think we'll see him play this Ursula Deceiver as well.
Start playing multiple characters on the board, questing with most of them.
Yep. Ursula Deceiver going to look at the hand. You see redundant bare necessities.
Discard one of those. Look, we'll get a draw off of the Prince John from that discard. Luke just studying Shawn's hand. Again, trying to map out what his next turn might look like. Paying 3 ink to play a Diablo.
Yep, knows that the coast is clear. Plays a Morph off the back of it.
Setting up for another Tinkerbell shift line. Shift Tinkerbell, we can challenge with it to turn it into play. Here we are. In 1 turn, we went from 2 characters on a cove to 4 characters.
Now, will we be exerting this beast to quest?
Luke presenting 8 lore on board total. Could quest with 4 of it right now, pushing him up to 8 lore.
Doesn't give him a 2-turn clock. Still 3-turn. All right, Luke. There's the draw off the Ursula. And now
Deciding is going to quest.
So now we've hit that point.
Well,
I think.
maybe. I can't decide.
I do think he will end up questing.
I do too. I think you're putting your opponent, on a 2-turn clock here. I think at this point in the game, it doesn't matter as much if you get the draw off the beast. Your opponent's spinning the turn, challenging a Daisy Duck into your beast just to remove the draw. That's still probably pretty good for you.
Well, is it a 2-turn clock? So we go up to 8. We're representing 2, 4, 6, 7, and actually 8, 9. But Shawn's going to go ahead and scoop it up. So we are going to go to a Game 3 for the finals of the Disney Lorcana Challenge here in Seattle. We have Amber Steel versus Emerald Steel. It's gonna,
Game 3 finals for the last DLC before Continentals. These players are having to fight for the championship. We sort of saw 2 different versions of a game. In the first game, Luke really not fine. I guess to be honest, Luke didn't have a great opening in the second game either. But, but
the Cove, though.
I was about to say, with the Cove, at least finding a better opening, sort of taking more control over the game, so we can see the power of Emerald Steel when it finds some of those pieces.
All right, let's get back down to the feature match table for Game 3. It all comes down to this: Luke Goodwin, Logan Schneider. Actually, it's Shawn. Sorry, that was the previous. That was the previous card. Up here, playing for the finals, Amber Steel versus Emerald Steel. Who would take it again? Will it be Emerald Steel again? I think if Emerald Steel wins another one of these, we got to take a look at this this color combination.
Yeah, you're telling me
taking too many Disney Lorcana challenges down.
Might be arguably the best color combination in Disney Lorcana across multiple sets, too. Not just Shimmering Skies, but also Ursula's Return.
Yeah, I thought we got rid of Bucky. This deck was supposed to be long gone.
That's what everyone said, and then came out to Vegas, and a couple players said, you guys had a lack of faith. Showed us what the works are. So when we look at Luke's hand here, we are missing that 1-drop Diablo, but we do see an Ursula Deceiver, some discard options.
I think that Luke kept an Ursula Deceiver plus a Diablo here.
Gonna alter 5 for Luke. I think Shawn's altering 4, shuffling up. Shawn's gonna get to go first this game as he lost last game. Good for Shawn to be on the play. I think Amber Steel definitely in the place you want to be. Most decks is where you want to be, but especially with Amber Steel getting the initiative of being able to play your characters first, sing your songs first, try to keep Luke off of some of those stronger openings.
All right. The decks are cut. The players have altered their hands. We're going to see if Luke has a better opener than he's had these past few matches. Shawn's hand also matters, but it feels like Luke is the one, the Emerald Steel player is the one that has the ability to kind of just take this game away in an unfair opening hand, right? Amber Steel can have explosive starts, but it's really pales in comparison to Emerald Steel's ability to have that perfect opening draw and just close at the game real quick.
One thing that I'm noticing immediately in Luke's hand is, we don't have the 1-cost Diablo. We also don't have a Hidden Cove, but we do have a Prince John. I think that ward is really going to come into play here against Amber Steel. We also have, Sudden Chill. We had Ursula Deceiver. Could open like a turn 2 Ursula Deceiver, play a Prince John on turn 3, sing Sun Chill. I said we didn't have the Hidden Cove. But
I was about to say that Luke's hand looks pretty bad once again. It just looks slow and kind of clunky, but Ursula Deceiver on 2, and now we have the access to the Hidden Cove as well to potentially play on turn 1 here. We saw how powerful that card can be, and here's the Exerted Ink in front of the Hypnotize. Oh, will play the Cove, will he not? Also have access to potentially something like a Morph. It does, and has the action as well, so it has access to the Shift Diablo.
Yeah, for this Morph sticks around, but for the Cinderella Ballroom Sensation,
it's going to be a turn late if you want to insulate it with the Ursula as well on turn 3, because you got to go turn 2 Morph and then turn 3 Ursula, snag the removal for the Diablo out of hand, then shift the Diablo. Hidden Cove to the front of the hand here for Luke.
Considering if we want to play this out now, really save it. Like we are going to play the hidden cove and pass it to Shawn.
Yeah, I kind of felt like it soloed the last game, so
Yeah, I think this is a good start for Luke here. Just we saw how powerful the cove can be and just changing those numbers, making some of the removal for Shawn subpar.
Shawn never really finding access to that shift queen line. Kind of been a disappointment so far. Shift queen would help a lot in getting rid of that cove.
Like we don't have a character to play or card to play here on turn 2 for Shawn. We're just going to quest Cinderella and pass the turn.
Yep, not what you want to see as we see that Luke's hand is actually loaded here.
No, an extremely slow play or slow opening for Shawn here.
So has the removal for the Diablo, but we're going to see Ursula clear the way and actually get rid of that Let the Storm Rage on. I can only imagine. Whole New World, not a very threatening card, especially at this stage of the game.
No, based on the last game, Whole New World.
The MVP for Luke.
Yeah. So Luke just taking time to study Shawn's hand. Looking at something like a Baloo next turn. Maybe with a Rapunzel followed after.
Interesting. So, yeah. See the sequence of the Ursula Deceiver morph coming down on 3 and then potentially shifting out Diablo. You sequence it that way because if you play the morph on 2 and then you try to shift the Diablo after playing the Ursula on 3, that could have actually been removed on the turn prior if Shawn has the heads up of getting rid of the morph. Perfect sequencing out of our Emerald Steel player here.
Move over to Shawn's turn. He's looking. He has a couple uninkable cards in hand, having drawn a second Whole New World.
Whole New World is
yikes,
devastating here.
Forced to ink a Rapunzel here.
I'm just gonna have
play
to
out a Baloo.
Play a Baloo, a 0/3.
Not very helpful in this scenario.
Yep, Bodyguard's gonna protect that 1/2, but I have a feeling Luke wasn't planning on challenging it anyway.
Yeah, I feel like you want a character with strength at this point, just to challenge the cove.
Now it feels like the ball is in Luke's court, not to mention that Shawn has 2 Whole New Worlds and a queen in hand. Doesn't even really have an inkable.
No.
So can't even reliably get up to 5. Could absolutely draw non-inkables and can't deal with this Ursula as well.
Yeah, nothing to play this turn except for the Cinderella here. But thinking about, we want to ink this queen, play the Cinderella. You know, we saw how definitely don't want to pay 5 ink to play these Whole New Worlds if you can help it. You want to sing it if you can, but something tells me that even if we do get to the point where this queen can be on board, it's not going to stick around long enough to sing.
Yeah, it feels like you're so all in on the queen, and then Luke's got the Ursula Singer deployed, can just kind of smell that, knows that your hand is very clunky, and just removes your entire board by double singing with that Ursula. Also, not to mention, if Shawn ends up stumbling here, Luke has access to that Tinkerbell, which is going to really take over that board. Shawn really hoping to not draw something like a oof, and now it starts.
Yeah, this is rough for Shawn here. Playing the Prince John, having Ward, drawing a card when Shawn discards a card. We're going to immediately double sing Sudden Chill, forcing Shawn to discard 2 cards from hand.
Oh, and gets rid of the queen, so the Whole New World has to top deck the Inkable. Knows that Whole New World is probably not gonna win him the game, but turn 5 queen definitely is not gonna win him the game.
No.
So he's gonna actually go to find the Inkable, take the risk, play the Whole New World. I don't think it's gonna pan out, but the way it looks, the other line would definitely not pan out. This line probably won't pan out.
Yeah, I mean, Shawn's only way back into this game is to finding an Inkable, playing this Whole New World, and hoping that we draw into a decent hand. Looks like Luke's going to spin an ink to move that Ursula Deceiver Ball to the Hidden Cove. Seeing the value that comes with singing songs twice. We do find the Inkable here. We've got to play the Whole New World.
And Luke just has a smile on his face, I'm sure, as Shawn basically skips his turn to draw Luke 7 new cards.
Especially with an Ursula Deceiver here on board. And double sing any songs we find. We do have a the Storm Rage on and a Sudden Chill that Ursula could sing.
That's
fresh new hand of cards. We have some Diablos to even look at Shawn's hand if we wanted to.
All right, it's back over to Luke. Definitely in a way better spot than if we had played the turn 5 queen by itself, but Shawn's got a big hill to climb here, and Anna is the draw here for Luke.
By the looks of Shawn's hand too, don't have that many great characters. A lot of daisies.
Yep.
Ariel's one of the only singers in there.
The Storm Rage on drawing 2 more cards here for Luke. We're going to go ahead and sing as well. Sing this Sudden Chill.
Forcing Shawn to discard a card. And we're going to draw a card off of the discard because of Prince Shawn.
Started to assemble that lock that Emerald Steel is very famous for at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Prince Shawn is basically uninteractable for Shawn here, not playing Tinkerbells or Grab Your Sword. So as long as Prince Shawn is readied, that ward is going to keep Shawn from being able to sing any song or target it with any songs. Just use that discard available to us to gain extra card advantage. We're going to play Diablo, get a look at Shawn's hand here. Luke is probably pretty happy with what he sees. Knowing that Shawn can't do much on the next turn, we could sing Strength of a Raging Fire with Baloo. 1 and 2 to banish a single card if we can develop some characters. Outside of that, Ariel's really the only other singer we could look to as well. Be a long hill up battle for Shawn at this point. Luke having established some great threats here between the Prince Shawn and the Ursula, and still has ink available to deploy some more. Could see another Ursula Deceiver of All being played.
Right. 33 ink. Are we going to play that? Nope, it's going to be another Ursula Singer. Very threatening. No way that Shawn can deal with both of them, especially with one sitting at the Cove. And we're going to go ahead and move the other one to the Cove as well. So both 3/4s at this point. Talked about those critical breakpoints for willpower just being so hard, these steel decks to deal with.
Especially scary. I mean, Shawn needs to establish some characters on board here so we can start either singing songs or challenging and banishing Luke's board. But with those Ursulas being able to double sing removal options, it's very likely that a lot of those characters you develop are just going to be banished. We are going to start with 2 Daisy Ducks. 4 willpower makes it a little bit tougher to get rid of, but Daisy being only a 1-cost character isn't going to be able to sing any songs. Only having 1 strength means it's not going to be able to challenge for very much either. We are going to play the Ariel. Look at the top 4 cards of the deck. Search for a song that we maybe can sing.
Funny because the Cove actually ended up protecting both those Ursulas as well. It's going to be a whole new world. 3rd one for Shawn. But yeah, the Cove did protect those Ursulas, and but since we deployed the 4th, we're going to go ahead and sing. Get rid of one of them.
Luke asking if Shawn wants to target the Diablo here. Shawn says, no, I think I want to hit one of those Ursulas.
Well, the upside of having 2 is that you've got the backup one here.
Yep.
Really, we're going to see something like a Let the Storm Rage On get sung twice, but could it get... That's the ink for...
I think we're inking that for the turn.
Would have been nice to be able to sing that one and snag. Oof. Sudden Chill off the top.
Could see another double sing for Sudden Chill here. Discarding Shawn's 3-card hand, I believe. And Muse is coming to play too. Muses would be a phenomenal card.
That's really, really good here because the follow-up to something like the Sudden Chill would be a whole new world out of Shawn, but he can't sing it. Doesn't look nearly as good. We're going to go ahead and remove that singer for a whole new world.
Yeah, this is rough. We see Ursula, Deceiver of All, singing Let the Storm Rage On twice.
Bounce both characters back.
Banishing a character and bouncing both characters from the Muses trigger because the song was sung twice. All of those characters Shawn just tried to play last turn back in the hand. And I think at this point, we've definitely established a lock for Luke.
Yep. So getting into that blue, it's going to be 2 lore here for Shawn. But I feel like Luke is about to start turning everything 90 degrees and start closing out this game.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the Muses, they have wards, so does Prince Shawn. As long as an Ursula Deceiver stays on board, when Shawn develops characters, if they have 2 or less strength, then we can double sing a song. Think we still have a Sudden Chill in hand that we could potentially sing, and for every song that we sing per turn, Muses can bounce a character with 2 strength or less, so most of the impactful characters that Shawn has to play right now are targets for Muses, so there's just no way Luke's going to allow those characters to stay in play and gain value.
Yeah, it's bringing me back to Vegas. I feel like we have assembled the lock here. Anything Shawn plays is going to get removed or bounce back to hand. He's just going to make Shawn discard cards and draw cards off the back of that. Got this engine going in the form Prince John uses. And to back it all up is a Cove, making everything hard to remove with the little bit of removal that might enter Shawn's hand.
Poor Shawn developing another Daisy and a Smee. The Smee can't be targeted by the Muses here, but Shawn's going to need more than a Mr. Smee to come back from this game. I'll be surprised if the Daisy Duck is still on board when it goes back to Shawn's turn. We have multiple songs that we can sing on Luke's end.
And it's a Hypnotize. But both songs, both cards probably going to be leaving Shawn's hand this turn. And then Shawn has no way back into this game. You can basically fully lock him out of the game.
Yeah, we're going to start by seeing a sudden chill here. Shawn discards a card. Muses is going to trigger.
Gets rid of the Daisy Duck. It's just going to be a whole new world in hand here for Shawn.
Oh,
and
we're
bounce his
actually...
own Ursula. He's going to play his Ursula, snag the whole new world.
Oh, no. We're going to see another Prince Shawn being played. No. Now when whole new world's discarded, Luke's going to draw 2 cards.
And Luke can taste the victory here.
Luke just setting up checkmate at this point.
It really does feel like this is a deck that does that.
Going to develop a morph with the last bit of our ink. Gives us an option to shift any Floodborn characters we have in hand or find later. Seeing Emerald Steel doing what it does best, you know, locking your opponent out of the game. And then when you see this many characters on an Emerald Steel player's board, you know that they're close to victory. This is where they just start turning everything sideways and
start closing out this game. And Luke's going to quest for 5. So up to 9 here. Sorry, up to 12. Okay, I think we're just playing around with the lore thing.
All right, we're going to pass it over to Shawn.
So at 8.
Yeah, counting up how much lore we have left.
It's going to be 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus something that we could shift onto the morph.
Means we probably don't win next turn, but...
Yeah, I would like to say big top deck for Shawn, but I don't think there's anything gets him in. There's the hand.
There it is. Shawn's going to give the handshake, meaning that Luke takes game 3. He is our winner for the Disney Lorcana Challenge here in Seattle, the last one.